Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 358 of my modded Factorio playthrough. In this episode, we are going to start some gold science research, including upgrading our power armor and making more tungsten. Enjoy. And I'm thinking we should do military force, specifically because I want to get to power armor. Usually the first thing I like to do when I have new science is just make the armor stronger. So in doing this, it'll give us piercing shotgun shells, which we don't care about. Cluster grenades, which we probably won't care about. Cannon shells, same thing. We're not here for that. We're here for Power Armor Mark II. And it's a big research, so it's going to be going a while. So requires lots of that stuff we made now. Like low density structure. And speed module 2s, no big deal. And we'll take a look at each bonus that the armors give us as we move up the chain. But now we can do Power Armor 3, and curiously, where this one required gold science and 4,000 researches at that, well, this one's going to require the gold science, which is the other gold science pack, which is just a combination of the first 4 science packs and the alien pack and some of these other ones, which is easy enough to make. So it's kind of weird how they're at the end, but they're actually a lot easier. Then we'll need more bits, but this time now we're starting to need alien artifacts and speed module 4s. To upgrade the armor. And then we keep going. It requires just a little bit more. But now silicon nitride, titanium, more artifacts, circuits, speed module 6s, which are things we just worked on. And finally, all the way to the bottom, just a little bit more research. And we have all of the highest tier stuff we have, more artifacts, and a couple of speed module 8s, but no big deal. And then we will have Power Armor Mark V, so the fact that you unlock all 4 of these at the same time seems a little off, but you know, that's how it's balanced, so that's what we're going to do. And research will begin, but it's going to be going fairly slowly in the beginning, especially with all these productivity modules in here. But this thing is fairly slow going, and it looks like it's because it never has enough low density structure. So how about we do like 400? That would basically fill the chest up, because I want to get researching. It's also interesting to note how much higher the energy consumption is, where the tier 3 lab was only 1.5 megawatts, and then this one is 6 megawatts, so it's way more power. It's going to be very substantial. They are faster, which helps a little bit, but man, it jumps up in power. No titanium plates, but actually, I think that makes a lot of sense, because we switched to coils. So to stop getting that warning, we are going to need to remove the request for now. So we'll just do that. Probably won't take very long to go through the rest of that. Even with only a few labs placed, it's one of the more energy consuming things in the factory. We're speeding up here. Almost got all of these labs placed. Then we can play with the modules. Some of this stuff we don't need to worry about calculating anymore, so let's do this here. If there's one place to use productivity modules, it's here. So just out of curiosity, we'll see what a full set of productivities will do. This is the final output of so many resources, so it's pretty important that we get productivity in here if we can. And there we go. Every lab is placed. So let's throw these modules in and see what happens. It's going to be a lot of them. Man, these things are going to be energy hungry. 14.8 megawatts for each one. Even without pollution, that energy consumption is brutal. No tungsten powder, huh? So it has stopped. Because we just don't have any. So that's not good. Actually, knowing that, I was thinking we might want to chill out some of this research, but we actually have a lot of it already stored here. 14K. So I think we're fine. Nonetheless, we have other ways to make it if we run out here. But I suppose, because of that, we probably should research the last thing that would let us make tungsten ore directly. So it gives us the best version of the leaching plant, the ore refinery, the electrowinning cell. So we just combine 3 of the tier 4 ores to make tungsten. And we're not doing that yet, but it's a pretty simple process. But nonetheless, we want to remember to do this now. And in fact, Perhaps we should do it first. Just to make sure it gets done in case we totally run out of tungsten. But all of our modules are placed. And now, let's see what this all requires. Well, it's way more than we can produce because we're producing about 3 on average for the whole setup. And we can do the math. We have 66 of them. And each one is 14.8 megawatts. So the whole stack is almost a gigawatt by itself. And certainly, when you look at the network, they are now the biggest consumer. Well, looking pretty good. I am very happy that we finally have the final tier of science packs. And the setup looks like it's going at full blast. Certainly if all the output machines are green, that's what we'd expect, and the other components that go in are a little slower. And it looks like we just got our tungsten. And because the researchers at the very top have such a high resource requirement, we're probably going to be waiting a little while, at least for this power armor. But in the meantime, we need to find something to do. And upgrading all of our ore sorting types to tier 4 so we can finally directly create tungsten seems like a great use of our time. Before we get working on making more tungsten, one thing I want to address is our tree setup, because we have 6,000 trees in here and we're not even producing it fast enough. So we probably need to rebuild this, because otherwise we're just going to run out of trees. And our setups are effective at removing pollution, but all of them aren't always working. So you can see this one right here didn't get its soil. So we kind of need to upgrade all of the aspects of this a little bit, but certainly the pollution has been removed. But nonetheless, since these tree setups are essentially always going to run, we need to always be able to get rid of the trees. Otherwise, they're just going to pile up. Didn't think we'd have so many trees now, but I guess we do. They're very much worth just running all the time, because they're consuming tons of pollution, and even if we don't technically need them to do that, well, they're making tree products which actually do go into quite a few things. Alright, well here's our old setup, but there's really no reason to rebuild it right here, because I kind of want to just tear this out eventually anyway to make more room for accumulators. So we should try to build it somewhere else. Certainly we'll have new technology which will help. And we might want to change how we're doing it, because right now we're chopping the wood down into fiber, into the pellets, and then shipping pellets. But maybe we want to take it all the way to bricks. So right now we're sending the pellets up to here, and you see 17 drones worth of pellets, just to turn them into bricks and send them on their way again. So I feel like we should still send pellets up here, but just do the bricks locally. And ultimately, the bricks go to this burner setup, and you can see that we might need more burner, because it is maxed out on wood blocks. So if we're going to do it, we should do it nearby. And how about this old spot that the propane burners used to be at? We should calculate how many blocks we're actually going to need. Because if our tree setups were working at full blast, we would get 22.41. So how about we just start a new line, and we'll input it there. 22.41. Probably should make this a little bigger than that, but we'll see what this is. Speed modules, but we probably should put a pollution cleaning in here, because kind of the whole point of all of this is that we're reducing pollution, so we don't want to add more. But you can see the output. 156 wood. Quite a bit. So we break the wood down into fibers, and we'll put that pollution cleaning in there. And look at all these fibers down into wood pellets, and suddenly this setup is getting large. And then finally with the pellets it condenses down into actually quite a bit of bricks. And hey, we actually can get away with one machine this time. That's actually a lot of energy. That's about 500 megawatts or so. Something like that. Not nothing. And then we'll also need to replace the crystal saw blades as they go bad. So this setup needs to be a lot bigger than the other one. And actually, when it comes to speed modules, one thing we need to concern ourselves with is just the input of fibers. Because ultimately we can only get 60 items a second on a single belt. So unless we output to 2 separate belts, which isn't particularly practical, because one machine can really only get 60 items with 3 inserters, and even then it doesn't really work because it doesn't evenly space it on the belt. So really we can only get about 40 or so. So we kind of need to have 2 machines per belt of items. So let's drop this down for now to get this to about 1 belt of our most limited resource here, the fibers, and get this down to about 2 machines or so. Although we can get our 60 items per second if it's direct inserted between 2 machines. Then the inserters do 42 items a second, so that would totally work. Yeah, and because these numbers are so big, we might want to design something that's just direct inserted for everything until it gets to the pellets, and then it's fine. But let's see what we can do here. So we can try to do this with an eye of making this expandable if possible, where however we set it up, there'll be trees on one side, saw blades on the other. Right now we're going to need 20 of each, so this will be expandable a little bit, and then they get turned into wood. But in this case, actually just a single inserter will be fine. And another single inserter, just barely, coming out of the fiber machine, going into the pellet one. And then this one will have the output of pellets, which is going to be a lot. And then we need a total of 8 of these. And then at some point, all of this needs to go into our single brick machine. And then our output of bricks goes down. Now we need the saw blades, which is a really easy process. And is this an okay place to put this? Yeah, I suppose. It's not particularly compact or anything, but it might work a little better if it's a little lower. And I see we got our power armor research done, so now that it just requires the alien packs, it's suddenly going to research much faster. But let's put this thing a little lower there. And how is the tungsten? 1K left, so yeah, after this is done, we're basically going to want to hold off on science until we have that tungsten ready. In fact, these bricks will never have to be sent on a drone at all, so we can actually get rid of this altogether. Of course, we're probably going to find ourselves overloaded on bricks now, but we're just about to tear out that other setup. I guess we'll leave that chest there. Okay, we'll have another one coming through here. And then we need to send this signal to these inserters. This is trying to fill it up to 4,000. So I would say there has to be at least 3,000 inside here before that will be allowed to turn on and start consuming the blocks. Well, the trees made it, and wow, there's 7.8k of trees in here already. That shows you how many we were holding on to. Man, it's going to create a lot of junk to pick all this stuff up. And it's going to request lots of pellets, and they'll go to where they need to go. That using those wood pellets is going to give us free carbon dioxide and free carbon, as well as free fuel. So definitely we want to use these trees for as much as we can, because although the power is useful, it is somewhat counteracting the effect of pollution if we're burning them for fuel, even though the net is very much negative. Alright, the power armors are done. Well, since we already have it researched, we probably could just build those power armors before doing the tungsten. I was just worried we were going to run out of resources, but it looks like we're holding out. Alright, so I kind of want to shut down this tree setup here, and probably the best way to do it is to just straight up unhook it, like right here and right there. So it should go through all of its trees, and it looks like we also need to deliver wood just straight up as a resource somewhere. We're not really set up to do that, but also something tells me the quantity isn't going to be very much. So how about we just have an inserter here, just filling the thing up. Because the way that we make sure we don't mess anything up here is look at all of the input and output depots and make sure those are all covered. And they essentially are. I guess the seeds will still be here. And we could actually move the seeds too. And then that would allow us to essentially remove all of the tree setup. But we'll see. It'll certainly go through all of its wood. And then it's going to go through this warehouse. Then the trees are going to turn on. Everything's going to empty out. So We might need to give it a little while to fully clear. But it looks like we're getting everything we need, so let's see how the saw blades work. This machine is going to be relatively slow, but it needs so few saw blades that it doesn't need to be fast. We'll let it go long enough so each machine gets a saw blade. Man, this thing's going to go through so much wood. Also, it looks like, finally, all of those pollution-reducing tiles have placed. I would like to place more, but it does seem to kind of confuse the robots a little bit to place that many tiles, so I'm going to wait a little bit and then we can place some more. We may not need any more if these trees keep working out. Okay, we are collecting saw blades. Let's crank out some wood here. And there's definitely not enough saw blades in the system here, but it'll keep going. Okay. Let's give the factory its pellets again. Make sure our logic works, because we want to get up to 3,000 first. Oh, that's wrong. This needs to be just wood. Otherwise, though, it seems to work, so we'll just hook it up and let that fill up. Although we probably should turn it off for a second just to get a full test of this, because that will pull away a little bit. One thing, though, is that this is just barely a surplus of machines. So since we have so many trees, it might take a long time to actually go through them all. So if we put like 3 more of them in here, that should be pretty close to maxing things out. Of course, that involves moving everything around. But for now, we'll just put these 2 extra ones in here. It's a little spaghettified already, but I was just thinking that if it's just barely big enough to do what we need, it's going to take an extremely long time to go through all of those trees that we've saved up. So if we make this a little bigger than it needs to be, then we can catch up faster. Even though it's a little close and I don't want to move it just to straighten out the belts a little bit. Still working on getting more saw blades, but that's how it is. And it looks like the factory needed a ton of pellets, but it's also because it's just asking for a ton of pellets that it really doesn't need now, because this isn't the dump of our bricks. So I'm not entirely sure how many we should send there, but you know what? You know, probably like 5 is good enough. And yeah, actually we don't even need to set this up to tree logic anymore. We'll just pick this up because it just always runs. We're going to get wood bricks reliably enough to where we can just consume everything. Although it's getting more and more janky. I think we can offset it by picking up the blades that are put back on the far belt here. There we go. Now they're starting to collect a little bit. And it looks like we're finally getting some blocks going by. It basically seems to work because that belt is about maxed out, and that's what we would expect. So let's hook everything up and let the tree setup down here just go through its stuff. So one other question we need to answer is, how many burners do we need for all of this? Well, we actually can calculate it on this line by saying we want heat from a burner heat source too. And the input is an 8 setup with wood blocks. And we would need 58 of them. And our setup right now has 64 technically. So it is technically big enough. I am kind of worried about the output here, but it won't make full output because some of the wood is going to be sent other places, both as wood and as the pellets. So it's actually not that big a deal. So I think that this size is just right. Certainly seems like it's running pretty smoothly now. And if we check the pollution, yeah, it's doing pretty good. These setups are running. They still have tons of trees in them. But now we need to make sure that we have enough soil and fertilizer for them, because I think that is an issue. It might be a little smoother if we can put 2 more machines in here just to max this thing out. There we go. The belt is compressed now. And it's definitely low on soil, so it seems like there isn't enough of it around the factory, but the pollution is quickly disappearing. Like this one certainly didn't get the soil, but I guess now it is. You find them by where the pollution holes are. We have other uses for those trees, like putting them into paper, but that's probably an unnecessary optimization right now. I'm increasingly finding that these yellow belts are having less and less uses, so perhaps it's about time to retire them from the quick bar. Okay, there's some upgrades to fertilizer. Well, if we're going to upgrade the power armor, we might as well upgrade the things that go into it. Unfortunately, a lot of it does require the gold science, so we'll want to get tungsten taken care of first. But there is a lot of this alien research that we can do, and it requires the gold science pack, which is not the other gold one, so these can research fine, where we can get better energy shields, just more of the previous shields and lots of high tier stuff. Has 1200 hit points, whereas this final one has 2400. Man. But we'll do it. And sure, get the same thing for vehicles. And we actually need to do these personal energy shields because that is one of the recipes that goes into spaceship parts. And we can do better batteries. Currently we have 750 megajoules, and this final tier goes to 1.8 gigajoules. Sounds good. And the same thing for vehicles. But that's about it, really. A lot of the stuff we need our science packs for, so we can't really take it any further. Well, to do tungsten from direct sorting requires that we have purified sapphirite, givelite, and steatite. And those methods just require the crystals, and you put it into an ore refinery, and then you get the purified on the way out. No other input resources are required. It's just time. But because we did the research to get here, now we can go straight to ore refinery 2 and not even deal with the first one. And then, if you want to, you can sort them using the generic sorting process. It is different than tier 3, where tier 3, 8 go in, 7 ores come out, and you get a slag. With purified, 9 go in and 9 go out, and you get no slag. And the difference kind of depends on which resource it is. Like, you get a tungsten out of sapphirite, and out of givelite, and out of steatite, a cobalt out of crotinium, a uranium out of rubite, a cobalt out of bobmonium. Then there's also the crystals as well, the tier 4 crystals for the combined ores. And to do thorium, we would need both of those crystals and catalyst. So it's all kind of interconnected here. Uh-oh, this thing isn't running anymore. Well, that's because we're actually fine on power, which is kind of a problem. Well, because of that, and the fact that this thing is probably going to have to burst, I think it's time for a second power plant. There we go. This is going to be a lot of solid power. And got to be careful about the wires connecting. So this thing is going to have quite a few megawatts to it. I guess we can check. It'll be 1.9 gigawatts for all of this wood. Man, that is so many biters. That is definitely where the slowdown is coming from. Man, it's so many orbs too. So I am glad we're doing this pollution cleaning, because just for performance reasons. The wall will hold up to the biters, but the computer won't. I imagine it's really hard on the UPS when one of these shots comes down and kills like 50 biters all at the same time. That's probably where the lag comes from, because it has basically a single frame to calculate all of these things that are happening. Plus, Swarmageddon makes the biters turn small. That is something I could potentially do, is just turn off Swarmageddon. Because you see, every time one of the big ones dies, it just makes more. But we'll see. I'd like to keep it on. It's been on this whole time. Man, so many biters. That would solve the orb problem, but I also want to see if we can just fix this by keeping pollution cleaned up. Because it's almost completely clean now. Basically not even using the plutonium anymore because of all of that wood. Well, we're right on the cusp of needing to do tons of constant research, which will be tons of power and tons of pollution. So before we continue, we want to make sure we have the highest tier of machines. And those are the green ones. So let's take a look at our new plants. Here's the ore refinery, and it just refines crystals. We have a couple choices on how to do this, and I kind of want to go with the lazy way. The better way would be to upgrade all of these machines, because right now they're all based on one red belt of each item, but each item has to go into the next one. So crushed go into washed, which go into crystals. So that means that to get one belt of all three of these, we need to have 3 input belts, which is what we have going. And then a 4th one goes down to make the combined ores. But that would be really annoying. I mean, we could upgrade all these belts, but that would be a lot of upgrading, a lot of machines, a lot of math. The easy way would be to just take the crystals and upgrade those crystals somewhere else and add it to the logic to these warehouses. Basically, we treat it like it was an ore sorting facility. Okay, well, we need to make a plan here, and let's just come through here and clear out a lot of this stuff we don't need to worry about. How about back down here for now? We need to go to ore sorting. Let's just pick saphirite. We'll get rid of the sorting part for now. And the output, let's just say 30, because that's the maximum we can do. Normally it required 20 machines, but now it only requires 10. And we get speed modules that drop it all the way down to 2.3. So maybe we didn't need to go through all this effort, because that's nothing, because everything we have is so powerful now. Well, okay. I guess we can build it here. Luckily we don't need too many of them, because they're actually pretty big. And that's essentially it. There's really not much to it. We would need 6 of them, essentially. I almost feel like we should stack them like this, just to make a better use of space. But in the future, if we want to expand it, we might want it to be sideways. But I almost wonder if there's a better place to do this. We might need the extra space here for the final tier of the mixed ores. So, since these can go anywhere, maybe we should put them anywhere. And this is a big empty space that we can put 6 of these in a line, and that would be fine. Oh yeah, we probably want to have some amount of power in here, but I think we can just place these substations manually to get everything covered. We don't have to mash them super close or anything, so why bother? I will get rid of this zone and parking area though. See, we can put one in the middle there, and one in the middle there, and it's all good. And we can bounce this signal all the way across here, and that'll get it on with everything else. Okay, are all the belts here? I think so. Let's see what it looks like. Pretty good, but actually these inserters are just not fast enough. Well, it's definitely using up the whole belt now. So, that seems pretty good. So I'm fine with just connecting everything. Well, it seems to be working pretty good. I noticed one of these belts is wrong. Okay. Well, we've got our 6 colors now. The most immediate thing we want to do is turn those into tungsten. So let's figure that out. Looks like they all got pollution modules, which probably slowed them down a bit, but I'm guessing they were probably close to 60 a second, because the outputs are all the same. So let's try to do that with tungsten. We certainly have the higher tier machines now. So to direct sort for tungsten, we want 60. It requires the best sorting facility, and we probably want lots of productivities in there, except take one out and put a pollution in there, which makes the pollution a quarter of what it would have been otherwise. And then we would need 20 machines, and it's kind of amazing that instead of requiring 30 of each item, we only need 11. So that's the power of the productivity module there. Is 20 machines too many? Well, the direct sorting methods are side by side like this, and most of them easily have more than that. In fact, if we just copy an existing setup, it will be the correct size. And also, a lot of these setups have logic attached to them too. So in fact, we can basically copy all of this, up to and including the logic. I guess it'll go on the end. Then we'll need to actually move tungsten to its final spot back here. But for now, this should get us reasonably close, so long as nothing's blocking us. So like right there, except I'll quickly remove the ore sorting facilities, so we can put the correct ones in there with the right modules. So we're gonna block up resources for a little bit here. But we kind of need to move this yet again. And we can just kind of pick this up for now and put it like over there. We'll get to it in a second. We need a sorter that would look similar to one of these other ones where it's bypass and goes straight through and also pulls the necessary resources off. We probably do actually want to have all of these charge slots. So let's just kind of put it over there for now. For now, I don't think I'll do any of the generic ore sorting types that give you a bunch of ores, because right now our factory's been holding out pretty well without doing those sorting types, and that would add a lot of complication and size to this setup. But maybe I'll do that off screen later and show how it works, because it's just kind of time consuming to do, and I've already shown it at least once, if not twice, in an episode, so I don't want to do the same thing again since it's already been done. Okay, we need to send the ore signal down in here, and we need a number to set it to, but since this is the only way to make it, let's just say 2000, since it's the very first way. Now that we have this, we do not need that false tungsten signal, so let's just get rid of it. And then I guess just kind of put this back in here somewhere. And that'll split the resources back on the bus and get that going again. We also need some logic, but tungsten is going to be the only thing that ever uses these ores besides just the generic sorting. So it's always going to have priority and thus needs no logic on anything, with the exception of perhaps the catalyst. And it needs the hybrid catalyst. So, of all of the things that use hybrid catalysts, they actually go into quite a lot. But of all of these, tungsten is probably one of the most important, because this is the only way to actually make it. So, I'm going to do something a little weird, because if I change one of these, I'm going to have to change all of them. I'm going to say like more than 100. It's essentially going to get first priority anyway, once we actually connect the wire here. Right there. But in practice, it's basically always going to run. And this is kind of why I don't want to add those other sorting methods, because even to change this one setting means I have to go through titanium, gold, cobalt, and uranium and change their settings too. So it's just kind of a lot of settings and a lot of grinding to get it set up the way that everything else is. And since it's working right now, I kind of don't want to. Okay. Now we wait on the robots to deliver our old-fashioned blue belts. And how are trees going, by the way? Well, maxed out. Both sides are maxed out. Lots of orbs. Because ultimately, we're just not using that much power right now. But that's about to change. Once we get reliable tungsten, we'll be able to do essentially constant research. Because a lot of this stuff is just kind of checking the boxes and things we don't actively need, because we're very close to building rockets, and we almost have everything we need. However, the thing that we're going to need to do a ton of research on is the faster than light theory, and I'm still not sure if I want to go with these numbers. But if we're going to need to do, say, 2 million red packs, we're going to want to start on that quickly. And the reason why I'm not terribly sure about these numbers is because 2 million sounds like a lot. For our entire factory, for all time, we've only made 1.1 million of the red science packs. For the entire playthrough, 641 hours. I'm legit a little scared, like maybe 2 million is doable? What about the last one? It's 20 million times 2. So this could be an interesting interaction between Science Cost Tweaker and SpaceX. So We shall see. I can adjust these numbers in the settings. But if we are to keep those numbers, we would basically want to start research essentially as soon as possible, because who knows how long it's going to take. So I am inclined to get all of this gold research done so we can get started on that. And there we are, making our tungsten. And they do not max out, these two blue belts. They're just there so there's less inserter issues. Ultimately, between all of this, we will get our 60. So what we would hope to see is, yep, this level slowly going up, but we are pumping out our 60 tungsten a second. Actually, one thing we probably should do, though, is we still need to handle this calcium chloride. Eventually, it's just going to build up. But that's going to have to wait until the next episode. Thanks for watching, and I will see you later.